Location, Willow Creek, Vermont, USA. Time, last week of October, 6 p.m., light rain, rustling leaves. Sia walked slowly down Grantham Street. Between the twin footpaths stood an old mansion. Grantham House, as if it had been waiting for someone for centuries. The house was now up for rent. Sia, having recently escaped the chaos of New York City, had come to this desolate little town seeking peace and inspiration for her writing. As she opened the door, a strangely familiar scent greeted her. Damp wood, old books, and something else. Something she couldn't quite remember, but somehow knew. At exactly 1:32 a.m., there was a sudden rattle at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Sia sat up and peered outside. No one was there. But when she turned back towards her bed, the window had swung open, and the curtains were swaying wildly, as though someone had just brushed past them in a hurry. Then, from the left wall of her room, she heard breathing, slow, heavy, and strained. Sia froze for a few moments. Then, the sound stopped. She convinced herself it was just exhaustion playing tricks on her. The next morning, while cleaning out some old boxes, Sia found a wooden chest. Inside were books, postcards, and an old photograph. In the photo was a young man, about 19 or 20 years old, curly hair, and intensely deep eyes. Below the photograph, handwritten words read, Edwin Ray, 1893-1912. And on a piece of paper, written in what looked like blood-red ink, he still breathes, he still waits. Sia felt a chill race down her spine. Could this house once have belonged to Edwin? That evening, Sia noticed a narrow trail leading from behind the house into the woods. Curiosity got the better of her, and she followed it. The path was covered in leaves and frost, but something seemed to pull her forward. After about half an hour of walking, she stumbled upon a small old cemetery. The faded stones bore the inscription, Grantham Cemetery, where time is silent. The graves were ancient, most from the early 1900s. Then she noticed one grave, the last in the farthest row, isolated. No name, no date. Just one chilling sentence. He still breathes. The earth above it seemed slightly raised, as if something, or someone, had been pushing up from underneath. That night, Sia dreamt vividly. She sat beside a lake. Next to her was the same boy from the photograph, Edwin. He spoke. You promised you'd return, Sia. I waited for you, even after they buried me alive. Sia awoke in a panic. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her throat was dry. The bedroom window had swung open again, even though she was sure she'd locked it. The following day, Sia discovered a bundle of old documents in the mansion's basement. One name stood out, Sarah Ann Whitley, with a listed cause of death. Vanished mysteriously in 1912 after the burial of Edwin Ray. Sia's full name, Sarah Ann Whitley. Was it just coincidence, or was she the reincarnation of Sarah? At exactly 3:07 a.m. All the lights in the mansion began to flicker. Sia ran for the front door, but it slammed shut and locked from the inside. On the wall, written in blood, were the words, "You have returned. Now my breath will be complete." Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, and the grave door outside slowly creaked open. Inside, Sia saw someone sitting upright, breathing. The call of breath, location, Grantham House basement. Time, 3:18 a.m. With cold air brushing her skin and her heart racing, Sia descended the stairs. A dense fog hung in the basement. The walls were damp and crumbling. In one corner stood the old chest, now wide open. From inside, the sound of slow, labored breathing echoed out. And then, a hand emerged. Dry, thin, yet still twitching. Sia couldn't even scream. It felt as though her voice had been ripped away. Gathering her courage, she picked up a folded piece of paper from the chest. If you are reading this, Sia, then you are the one, the warmth of whose breath kept me alive. I was buried alive because I loved a Whitley, and now, with your return, I will no longer be incomplete. Edwin's faces began to appear on the basement walls, as if the house itself remembered someone it had long mourned. She promised she would return. Now Edwin will be whole. Sia ran upstairs, but every door, every window had sealed itself shut. She was trapped inside the house with someone who was no longer human. In her bedroom, behind an old wardrobe, Sia found a diary. Year, 1912. Name, Sarah Ann Whitley. Meeting Edwin was the rebirth of my soul, but our love became a sin. My father, along with the Grantham Society, buried him alive and told me that if I didn't abandon Edwin, the next grave would be mine. That night, I swore if Edwin ever called me in another life, I would return. Tears streamed down Sia's face. She no longer felt like just herself. She felt like a soul reborn,